Then let's move it on to the next conference,
Yeah,
which is
this
the
is
one
going to
that,
be a long one.
which is the one I don't know. I didn't have to take very many notes on it, but the PC gaming conference, the one that we thought each of us, I think, thought was the best in show.
Yeah, the PC gaming conference came a long way over the last couple of years because the first year it came out, it felt like a waste of time. Last year it was greatly improved, but it was AMD shilling for a good part of it. This year it was Intel shilling for a part of it, but yeah.
They just got it together a lot more. They treated it much more like
Like a talk show.
I was gonna say like a late night talk show, and I really like that. I like that format. So
Especially whenever they sat down with the developer and talked a lot more about the games, because that's something that we don't really have in any of the other conferences. Is that you don't learn a lot about a handful of games. You're just giving them to you in a fire hose. Microsoft gives you 20 trailers back to back to back to back.
yeah,
And maybe you'll be able to catch a couple names. Maybe you'll recognize a game or two. But outside of that,
yeah.
this was how many? I would say probably a dozen games overall that they went fully in depth on.
Yeah. Which I like that better. Like I said, I only took notes about the stuff that really interested me, which was only a couple of things. But I still enjoyed like just sitting there watching it like, oh, that's interesting. Like I probably won't play this game, but this is a format that's entertaining and interesting, and it's a nice break. Like, what's the best way to say it? Instead of it being like a fire hose of water, this was like fine wine. Or maybe scotch, because I drink scotch really slowly. But regardless, it was a nice break from just the constant.
And there was
barrage.
a lot of people complaining online that this doesn't have enough energy.
It's perfect.
Go watch the Devolver Digital thing again.
It had the right amount of energy. It was perfect. I loved it. I didn't feel like I was being sold anything either. Like I know that there was Intel shilling and a whole bunch of stuff about esports and VR in there, but like I didn't feel like I was being sold anything. All the other conferences are like, check out this cool game, check out this cool game, check out this thing you should buy, totally. But this one I was like, hey, this is a game that we find interesting and we're going to talk about it for a while.
Yeah, so let's dive right in with XCOM 2, War of the Chosen.
Yeah, I was a little confused at first about what this was. I thought maybe it was like a tie-in to Anthem or maybe Destiny 2, because it doesn't seem XCOM to me. But yeah, I assume it's all cutscenes.
My first note is Halo Energy Sword.
Yeah. But I assume that's all cutscenes. I don't know. It might not be. They might be doing something completely different with the DLC or expansion or whatever they said it was. But it looked neat. It looked really good. And I mean, I'm planning on getting XCOM 2 soon, probably on this summer sale. So
I'm not sure if I'm going to get it on this summer sale. I'm terrible at the original XCOM. I just don't forget the base building right, and it just causes me to fall behind.
Yeah.
It's just something I haven't sat down and worked on enough. I'm not sure if I really like the idea of the Lost Ones zombie mutants things. They're essentially just swarmers, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, well, there's a lot more zombies in XCOM 2 than there were in XCOM 1. I know that. Yeah, true. So it kind of makes sense as like a continuation or expansion of that storyline.
Yeah, they also brought up that it is twice the size of Enemy Unknown. The size of Enemy Unknown's expansion, Enemy Within. So that's actually a fairly significant chunk.
Yeah, because the Enemy Within was a pretty big expansion that added like a completely new story thread to follow and quite a bit of new character customizations. That had 2 new classes and a whole bunch of stuff. So
yeah, and this also has 3 factions to try to bring together and bring into the XCOM calls. So there's quite a bit here. I'm actually a little bit surprised. And they also mentioned that there's champions, which are essentially super units that gain powers over the course of the game. And that they're procedurally generated as well. That every run you may get something a little bit different. That they choose from a pool, I believe. Yeah,
which that sounds interesting as well and good. Like I'm in.
And the 3 champions are completely different as well. One is very stealth based, the other is very stomp, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I like it.
Really, a lot more to talk about. It launches on August 29th.
Yeah.
So, Ooblets. Next up. Harvest Moon meets Pokemon, so Viva Pinata. Oh, plus some Animal Crossing.
Yeah. It looked
Which essentially makes this video game crack for some people. Let's be perfectly honest.
Are you one of those people?
The Harvest Moon portion, yes. Pokemon, not really. So, and I never really played Animal Crossing.
Okay.
It is a very impressive looking game for a two-man development team.
I thought it looked really cute, but it didn't really interest me all that much. So, I don't know. I didn't really take any notes about it.
Yeah, well, I didn't have a lot of notes, and they didn't really go in depth on it. This was they had some games that they went in depth on with the developer, others that they just showed a trailer and maybe had a little bit of info on it.
Yeah.
Okay, so next up, BattleTech.
Yeah, this is what I'm excited for.
Tactical turn-based mech combat.
I'm so excited.
I didn't know this was being made. I missed the crowdfunding campaign on it completely.
Yeah, I missed the crowdfunding as well, but it was mentioned on a co-optional from, I don't know, a few months ago, I guess, after the crowdfunding had ended. So I've been slowly watching it, but they haven't really released any information, and I guess it's because they were saving it for this.
It looked very impressive.
It looks so good. Oh my god. I
it
came in my
like,
pants.
Yeah, I was moist.
Yeah.
Well, it's essentially BattleTech, the tabletop game, in a PC form, to the point that this is a mech game that has melee combat again. We haven't seen that in, well, the Mech Warrior series, I guess, is the closest we have to BattleTech, which is still completely different styles of gameplay. First-person mech combat versus tactical combat. We haven't seen mech melee since Mech Warrior 4?
No, there was no melee in Mech Warrior 4.
Or Mech Warrior 3? I know one of the Mech Warrior games had some melee combat in it, but it wasn't exactly encouraged.
Yeah, no. But I mean, if you played,
well, they also suggested that Goomba Stomping's back.
Yeah. If you've played BattleTech or read any of the books, like there are entire mechs designed around melee combat, so that's really exciting to hear.
And they've also specifically said that it is armor sections and component damage instead of just HP based, which is also very exciting, and that battle salvage is key to getting your stuff.
Which, that is very reminiscent of the Mech Commander real-time strategy games that are based in the BattleTech universe. And I mean, every Mech Warrior game, as far as I know, has had component damage, but the salvage has never really mattered, except in the Mech Commander series.
Yeah.
I mean, you can get salvage in all the Mech Warrior games, but you earn money. Like, most of your stuff, honestly, you buy. Mm-hmm. You just sell the salvage you get and buy the better stuff.
Yeah, they were talking about if an enemy has a weapon you want, you avoid damaging it and just take out the mech another way.
Yeah.
So let's say he had a gun you want on his right arm. You may just damage the left arm and slowly chip away at the torso components after you blow off the arm, or just jump jet behind them and just go to town on their ass.
Yeah, baby.
And they also talked about how customization is key with fully customizable mechs. It looks very, very good. Yep,
I'm really excited. I'm so tempted to actually go back it, because you can still back it. They're not using Kickstarter or whatever. But
but at this point, there's really little reason to.
Yeah.
But you could only be so erect, right?
Yeah, well, if you back it at a certain level, you get beta access. Which, normally I'm against that sort of thing, but everybody's got their weakness, and giant stompy mechs are mine. And I guess trains. Trains and giant stompy mechs.
What about a giant stompy mech that turns into a train?
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Do you need a break to go take a cold shower?
Yeah, I need a break to go do something.
Oh, my.
Yeah, I'm super pumped for BattleTech.
All right, how about another game that I'm looking forward to?
Okay.
Mount & Blade 2 Bannerlord.
I
I liked the Mountain Blade, previous games. I didn't play Fire and Sword, the standalone expansion, if I recall correctly, that focused more on gunplay than anything else. But Mountain Blade, if you get past how clunky it is a very in-depth sandbox RPG. And it looks like they are trying to fix a lot of the clunkiness in this. And they really also bumped up the graphical quality as well. What's worrying me a little bit is, one, Mountain Blade, once you got into some of the larger combat situations, the frame rate just tanked because there's just so many units fighting. So they have to figure out a way to do that well. Maybe just modern builds of the game, a complete rebuild with modern hardware will be able to get around that. Just throw raw horsepower at it. And also, it is a little bit silly that you could still be pin cushioned. I'm not sure if you noticed that on the trailer.
I mean, I didn't. I'm not the biggest Mountain Blade fan. It's not terrible, but I think I got to it too late to really appreciate the kind of game that it was, because it's always just felt really clunky and
perhaps
and almost broken at times to me.
And Mountain Combat still looked pretty good as well. Mountain Blade is one of those games that certain situations it does really well. Mounted Combat with a giant two-hander and just taking out someone, just that crunch sound, it was just incredible.
All right. I mean, like I said, I don't really have anything to add. I'm not the hugest fan of Mountain Blade, so I mean, I'd give it a shot. You're talking it up to me. You're making me feel good about it, but
it looked good. The granted is, how well does it play? That's the $42 question.
Right.
So, Total War Warhammer 2?
Sure.
Still not called Total Warhammer, by the way, which is a complete miss.
Yeah.
And they have space dinosaurs now.
Which is cool, but I probably won't play this game. I mean, it's not because it's, like, bad or anything. It's not on my radar.
I haven't... I want to eventually play Total Warhammer. It's just... I haven't bought it yet. It was on a Humble monthly bundle at one point, but I couldn't pull the trigger on it. I just didn't want to.
Right.
I guess it's a combination of being cheap, and I have a lot of Total War games to go through already.
Yeah.
All right, then there was some sort of Shadowverse expansion, which they honestly didn't go into that much.
Not really. They got the trailer and said something about it. But...
yeah, it looked almost fairy tale based, really.
Yeah. Which looks pretty neat, but again, no real context or explanation, so I'm not really sure what to think of it. I guess just wait and see.
And let's see. Must be... That's pretty far down on my list, so I took some notes that you didn't. They had some.
Okay.
They had Intel/VR talking for a while, and
a
lot of marketing bullshit that I just didn't even take notes on.
Yeah, my only note for that was Intel came out.
Yeah, it felt like it really messed up the pace of the show, to be perfectly honest, because they went through a lot of games really quickly at that point.
Yeah, they talked about Destiny 2 as well. I put a minor note in there. But again, they brought out a streamer. I had no clue who he was. Apparently, he's a huge Destiny streamer, but I don't.
Apparently, that's a thing.
I mean, I'm happy that it's coming to PC, but we've talked about Destiny 2 a couple of times on the podcast before already, so I don't really need to spend any time.
Yeah, they did say that it's multi-threaded supported.
Yeah, which I honestly kind of laughed at, but who knows? Maybe.
Well, that's about the only thing I could note.
Yeah,
I need to step away for a moment.
So, anyways, you were talking about.
Yeah, honestly, the Intel stuff is a complete skip over. Destiny 2 didn't really talk about much. Esports arena announcements, blah. Intel Grand Slam is interesting that they're trying to jumpstart esports a little bit more and really focus on indie games. Granted, they really didn't talk about what the indie games are.
I will say about the VR stuff, I found it interesting that they were going to have an esports tournament in Poland.
Yeah.
I don't know if Poland is like some center of VR that we don't realize or what, but
shame we have no one there that could help us.
Yeah. Kim us. Anyway, sorry to
Maybe
interrupt.
we should send Chemist to the esports finals.
He might go. Actually,
Uh,
he might. Anyways, carry on.
and well, one of the VR games that they're going to do, one of the that's in the finals in Poland for the VR challenge, which is a little bit later, is Echo Arena, which is I was getting a very Ender's Game sort of feel from this.
I also got that feeling, which I thought was pretty cool, but
It's not something I'm sure I would want to play in VR though.
yeah.
I mean, maybe it would work better because you get that depth perception a lot easier with VR. I don't know.
Yeah. Maybe.
But the other announcement for this is that this is going to be free at launch for a limited time to Oculus users. So if you have a Vive, well, you're shit out of luck.
You'll just have to buy it.
Let's see, VR Challenge, which we already mentioned, which finals will be in Poland. We found out later that Echo Arena is one of two games that they're covering in it. I don't think they ever said what the second game was.
I don't remember if they did, so yeah. And I didn't take any notes about it.
And, well, now I'm finally at Tunic in my notes, which
Okay.
is formerly known as Secret Legend, which it's always weird to have a game that it changes its title midway through development because you lose all that hype that you got from before.
Yeah.
Granted, I never heard of Secret Legend, but, some people may have.
Yeah, I hadn't heard of it
It's
either.
an isometric. I believe it was some sort of platform, if I recall correctly. I didn't note the genre on this, but it felt like almost everything was made out of miniatures, sort of how Besiege was.
Yeah, it felt very like the whole thing was shot through a tilt shift lens to me.
Yeah.
Which was a neat aesthetic, but I don't care at all for the type of game that it is.
Well, it's isometric, so there you go.
And platforming. Lots of platforming.
At least if I recall correctly, it was the platformer. Which it seems like tilt shift viewpoints is catching on after the Besiege, huh?
Yeah.
Then let's see, PlayerUnknown's Battleground reared its ugly head again.
Yeah, they just talk more about the expansion and what you could do with
Well,
or
we're
the
not even.
update.
Yeah, I was
The
going to
update.
say that this isn't Ark Survival Evolved. This is an update, not an expansion. Get it right.
Right?
And a few interesting things, not to me, but still. They have in-game replays planned, both a 2D and in-game, 3D, which I think would really help with a potential esports scene, maybe, or just for YouTube, because that is a big marketing thing. Is that if you have the tools to do machinima, then there you go. They're trying to make the game more stable and competitive because it's having some server issues because it's very, 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 very popular right now. As a matter of fact, what is the current player number? So let's find out. It is peak today. Do you want to guess?
10,000?
You're joking, right?
I don't know. I have no idea how popular this game is. I just guessed. I know it's like well received right now.
Jared, it's the number 3 game right now on Steam.
Is it really? Jesus. So how many is it?
On current players, it's number 3. Peak today is 193,000.
Fuck.
Do you see why I kind of took pause when you said 10,000?
I didn't know how high up the list it was.
Right now, it has 106,000 players. It's only behind Counter-Strike Global Offensive in Dota 2. It's right ahead of Payday 2, GTA 5, H1Z1 King of the Kill, and Team Fortress 2.
Well, good for them.
It has over twice the numbers of Ark Survival Evolved, if that gives you any idea of what's going on here.
Yeah, good for them.
Like I said, this doesn't matter to me, but it matters to a lot of people.
Yeah, same.
But let's see, they're adding jumping and vaulting, which is something that you don't really see a lot in this genre. Usually, fences are pure obstruction. And let's see, they are allowing modding down the line, and there's more maps in the pipeline. Let's see, next up was Rising Storm 2, which was just a quick trailer and really no info given. Did you take anything for that?
No, I did not.
Killing Floor Incursion?
Yeah, I didn't take any notes about that.
VR Stupor, essentially.
Okay.
Which doesn't interest me. Could interest some people. If you're a fan of Stupors, there you go. It's another VR game. So that does seem to be a lot more emphasis of the VR in this E3. Maybe that's the turning tide. Is finally VR games are starting to come out where they're no longer just experiences. Grant, I'm not sure if I like the Stupor genre, but there you go. And then they brought out Killing Floor 2.
Yep.
Anything here?
Nope.
Well, pretty much what they talked about was the Killing Floor Summer Update, which is something that they started with the original Killing Floor, where they have a timed update where it's an event that goes on, well, in this case, during the summer, with new cosmetics, new enemies, new weapons, new achievements, and it lasts for 1 month. With a new weekly Outbreak Challenge that happens weekly, and there's 8 of them over the course of 2 months. And let's see, Forza Motorsport 7.
Which we covered that already in the Microsoft
Yeah, they
conference.
did bring up a couple other things. First, wanted the series to come right to PC instead of a pure port, which is something. They did bring up this. They brought up wheel support for a racing game.
Well, I mean, yeah, I didn't really know why they did that, because Forza has always supported wheels.
And, well, something else that I found a little funny was they brought up mouse and keyboard support as well, like you'd want to play this game with a mouse and keyboard, but they were talking about they were throwing all the USB devices that they could at this game to the point of actually playing the game with a Guitar Hero controller.
Yeah.
So I think that's the bigger thing, not the Guitar Hero thing, but the fact that they're trying to make it as compatible as possible, because that is one trapping with some wheels. It's that if they're not well supported, you're kind of out of luck there.
Yeah.
And let's see, some more with Sea of Thieves, where they talked about riddle map storms and firing out of cannons as gameplay features. 4K unlocked frame rate. Woo!
Yeah. PC Master Race.
And they specifically said that this is not a port for the PC version. They said that 2 versions of the game are being created in parallel, and that the PC version is not a port of the console version, which is something that you don't see that often, really.
No, you don't, but I hope it's true.
Usually a gameplay development, you see one version developed, and then they port it to the other platforms. In this case, the Xbox version and the PC version are being made at the same time, which is nice. Let's see, The Last Night. This is where we got more info on The Last Night. Not a lot, but a little bit. It's a story-driven platformer, essentially, with real-time puzzles. Where, as you're doing things, and I believe they were talking about a virtual reality. In the game, I should say, not real VR. Time still takes place in the game, so you have to essentially hurry, which honestly doesn't sound appealing to me. But I think this is one of those games that, as you look at the trailers and everything, it looks like a different game than what it is. So this may be one of those games that it does itself a disservice trying to explain itself.
Yeah, I agree. I do like the art style, though. It is very pretty, but it didn't seem...
I'm a little torn on the art style, really, just because it's just such a jarring effect between the pixel art and the highly detailed backgrounds. The one thing that I did find a little interesting that they mentioned, granted I'm not sure how well it plays, or plays out, I should say, is that it takes place over several nights, and that what you do in one night impacts the other nights. And they said, like, if you're rude to someone, they'll remember it and may not help you later on. So how much does that really affect the game, or if it's just a surface thing? That's something that I think is going to be very interesting.
Right.
Okay, Islands?
I didn't take any notes about Islands.
Oh boy, I got notes. It's the open world survival game, question mark, but in truth, it's a open world sandbox game with a lot of different styles of gameplay being shown, which is interesting. It feels almost Gary's Mod-esque, where it's you building the game around yourself. But there was one line that made me take pause. They talked about how you could do anything in this game. And I made the note, where have I heard this before?
Right. I know where you've heard it before.
Are we going to bring up the glue bottle?
No, let's just leave it.
It is an interesting sandbox game, or interesting looking, I guess I should say. It just really comes down to, what are they doing with it? Because, they didn't really say anything. They just said, ooh, look at our tools, gameplay? Look, there's somebody driving around, and there's other people on the horses. Maybe it's just me being skeptical about these things. I don't know.
Yeah, it didn't really draw me in. That's why I didn't take any notes about it. I was like, okay, I've seen stuff like this before. I'm not super interested.
Yeah, obviously it seems like I'm the only one that took notes on everything. Or nearly everything.
Yeah.
No wonder my notes were so much longer than yours.
Yeah, I skipped a whole bunch of the stuff. Like, I watched it, but I skipped a whole bunch of it on the PC Gaming Show.
Griftland.
I liked the look of Griftland.
Yeah, well, first of all, this is a Clay game. And Clay has Clay's style is that they have no style. All of their games are pretty unique. Not all of them now, because of Oxygen Not Included looking a lot like Don't Starve. But they typically are at least pretty good in their gameplay department. So I am somewhat interested in playing this. It has a very old school RPG look to me. In a good way, I should say. And the fact that it's a sci-fi old school RPG is interesting, because usually those are fantasy based.
Yeah. Yeah, I really, really liked the look of it, and I like the idea that, or liked getting the sense that it's an old school RPG. It looks good. I'm very interested in this.
And let's see, Lone Echo is up next. A VR, essentially astronaut simulator is what I got.
Yeah.
Freedom and Zero G, where you're moving around with your arms. I'm assuming it's going to use the motion controls, because it pretty much has to.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is pretty much literally Ender's Game, the training thing that they do, where that you have to score the ball through the other person's goal, and you can take out the other players to immobilize them.
Yeah, you can bonk someone on the head and mess them up.
Yeah, but then at the end of the trailer...
There was no gunplay, though.
Yeah.
They did say that there was going to be a single-player component as well.
Well, at the end of the trailer, like, it completely shifts from, like, this sort of interesting, fun, like, wacky multiplayer game to suddenly, like, you're outside on a ship and another ship warps in, and, like, there's this sense of urgency. That might be the single-player component that they were, like, teasing, because it looks honestly completely different.
Honestly, a sense of urgency in an astronaut simulator does not seem very fun.
No. Well, yeah, maybe. Depends on how they do it. I mean...
Yeah, true. But with how they're talking about moving around with your arms, essentially.
Yeah.
It could be... It done well, it could be interesting, but I'm not sure about this one. But, it is a VR game, so it's completely outside my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
Let's see, Lawbreakers.
I mean, we've seen stuff from Lawbreakers before.
I did like that they called out bullshit betas.
Yeah.
Talking about how their beta is actually a beta. And I believe that they talked about releasing a cheaper price of $40, I think. It was a cheaper price there. It's not a full price game. They were specifically saying our betas are actually a beta. It's not just a server stress test. And we're not releasing as a full price game because we are a multiplayer only game. So I like them.
Yeah.
Not sure if I want to play the game, but I like them.
Yeah. I mean, Lawbreakers doesn't seem like terrible, but it also doesn't seem super interesting to me.
It's also very, very movement based, even more so than Overwatch, which is probably one of the more movement based multiplayer games out there right now, with a lot of zero G abilities in areas, a lot of swinging around and grabbing things, and really coming out of directions that you wouldn't normally expect players in a 3D shooter. A lot of depth from above, really.
Yeah.
If you want something different, Lawbreakers is probably up your alley if you're into arena shooters. Let's see, Wargroove, Advance Wars.
Yeah, I'm really happy to see this game. I'm really excited about it. This is one of the ones that I was took some notes about. But yeah, definitely medieval Advanced Wars.
Yeah, pretty much. 12 campaigns with different commanders to unlock, local and online multiplayer, in-game map editor that runs very quickly.
Yeah.
And they talked about branching missions in the campaign.
Yeah, I got a mix of like a Fire Emblem vibe and also Advance Wars. Like very much Advance Wars art style, but then like with the branching campaigns, I got a Fire Emblem vibe. But Fire Emblem goes super far with the branching campaign, so obviously we'd have to wait and see how much they actually do that. But with so many single player campaigns, they might actually have quite a bit of diversity.
You know, I really need to go play Fire Emblem at some point. It's been on my list for quite a while. Let's see. Middle Earth Shadow War. Not a lot more that they talked about outside of saying that they'll have story DLC eventually. Which a lot... What was the DLC for Shadow of Mordor? Was there any story elements?
I don't know. I've never actually played the Shadow of Mordor DLC.
Because I'm just looking at my entry of Shadow of Mordor on Steam, and there's a lot of cosmetic stuff. And a lot of like mini test and arena stuff. I'm sure that there's probably some sort of story DLC here somewhere. The Blight Lord, that looks like DLC. Oh, sorry, the Bright Lord, not the Bright Lord. Small text, what can I say? But yeah, it's just one of those things that it seems like Shadow of Mordor didn't have a lot of story DLC. So, good to see that they're expanding on it. More Shrek for everyone.
Yeah.
Unless calls for a celebration. Unless you don't like Shrek. And then they wrapped up teasing this big announcement, and it was
Age of Empires Definitive Edition. Yeah.
Not what I was expecting, and I wasn't expecting much, and I was still let down.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just I somewhat enjoyed Age of Empires, but I'm not someone that's clung to it all these years.
Yeah, I think Age of Empires is a great candidate for a game that's way overrated. It's fun, and it was great in its time, but games have moved on so much since then, in design and control and everything.
Oh, they also, well, I'll go over my notes I have for this. They said it's an update to Age of Empires. Xbox Live multiplayer, question mark, what? Which made me take pause and think, oh boy, probably a Windows 10 story, to be perfectly honest.
Yep.
They called it a rebuild of the game, and they focused mostly on being able to zoom out further, which is something going back to the older RTSs is very apparent that they were zoomed in to limit the amount of processor power that you had to use.
Yep.
And it's very tough for me to play something like Age of Empires now because it feels like zoom out so I can see. And they were talking about essentially a rebuild of the pathfinding a lot, and that it's a modern RTS in Age of Empires, having a lot of modern quality of life improvements, like an idle villagers button to be able to reassign villagers that are just standing around, control groups, which I completely forgot was it in Age of Empires.
Not the original one. I think it was in 2 or 3, but...
So if you're a huge fan of Age of Empires, well, here you go. Just once again, not for me, but it could be for people that are excited for it.
Yep.
So, what do you think of the PC gaming show? Unless you have some notes that I don't.
No, I don't. And I mean, we kind of front-ended it. I thought that the show was great. I loved the talk show atmosphere. I loved that we got more in-depth stuff on most of the games. Not all of them, but most of them. And I was really, really, really excited for BattleTech.
Yeah, that really caught me off guard, and I'm excited to play it as well.
Yeah. Timestamp me, yo.
30303.
All right. 30303.